just
Well, if you wouldn't mind, just share with us a little bit of what you do so the audience can know what you're coming from.
Certainly. So I run an organization that specifically focuses on the insider threat, which basically means that we try and help organizations to mitigate the risk of users either accidentally harming the organization crown jewels or intentionally, which is sometimes referred to as maliciously, harming the organization's assets. So, this is what we do.
It's a hot topic. It's a hot topic right now.
It's a hot topic, yes.
Sure.
And given that we are an organization based on people, so this question really relates to a people sort of question. From a sales perspective, so, we've talked a lot about a process and an onboarding process. My question is very much around the complex sales environment where you're looking at it, let's say, in an enterprise, and you've got a lot of moving or dynamic sets of people. So you can have a group of people that you're talking to. Let's say you're talking to the CISO, or you're talking to, sorry, I shouldn't go through acronyms. Let's say you're talking to the security manager.
Sure.
And the security manager is very keen and interested in what you have to offer, and you show them the onboarding process. And it's interesting that we're doing a very similar exercise right now with an organization.
Okay.
But they haven't sold it upwards to the executives or to another, maybe to the risk officers. So what happens is they expect you to offer some services, some value, and then they want you to help them with to develop a business case so you can push it up to management or the executive. And this is what happens when you come into a very large organization. You have lots of different moving parts. Everyone is trying to shout, look, I need something, but they haven't sold it to management or executive. And so what they are hoping, you can actually help them. And so sometimes what happens is when you do reach the management executive, it's not a priority. It's not even, they haven't even thought about it. And so now you have to start the whole sales process again and onboarding, and they don't get it. And so it's quite frustrating. So my question is very much, how would you look at from a strategic approach in terms of addressing that challenge?
All right. It sounds like what's happening here is they are shifting the burden to make this sale move up the chain to you. They want
Correct.
you to do the heavy lifting. So,
Correct.
And that gets you in trouble because they're not the one who's going to be champion this ahead of you. So what you need to do to prevent this from happening is early in your sales process, when you have a champion like the circuit manager who wants to do this, but they don't have to go up, what you want to do early on is you want to enroll them. And you want to say this, you want to say, look, as we move forward, we're probably going to have to move this up the chain, right? Now, I'd like us to work together on this so you can let me know what you think the best strategy would be for us. Here comes the key word, together to make the case, to go up to the decision makers to move this forward. Now, what would you suggest would be the best plan to do that? So what's happening is you're framing and giving them responsibility early in the process. Let them know they're the ones who are going to provide the navigation and the strategy for how best to approach each person. You're just going to support them in that activity. So you're flipping it from them having you do all the heavy lifting to having them do the heavy lifting and you supporting them as a team. That's how you start in the beginning, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, so I'll have to think about it because I think that the challenge is they're expecting you to not only.
It doesn't matter what they expect you to do. You have to change their expectations and their framework from earlier on or midway to let them know you're not going to hang yourself in midair. And because it'll fail, and you know it'll fail. So don't take that responsibility on you. Don't feel obligated that just because they want that from you, you have to do that. Because they're setting you up to take the bullets and the arrows.
Correct.
Rather than, right. So What you have to do is have a heart-to-heart with your champion. And you have to say the truth. And the truth is this. If you go on your own and try to sell this thing without them side by side, this thing will fail. No doubt about that. So what you like to do is work on a plan with them and for them to provide the best advice on what they think would be best to work together to solve the problem of getting it sold.
Okay, so that leads to another question. So how would they know what's the best advice? Because if you're relying on them to come up with a strategy of how to sell this idea to management, they're thinking like this organization we've been talking to, oh, can we do a proof of concept? So we don't want to provide free value up front. We want to start onboarding. But the challenge is that they'll say, well, we can't do that until management agree. And it's sort of a bit of the chicken and the egg story.
I understand. So you have to now provide some ideas for them to consider to get them comfortable. Like, for instance, you might want to say, and here's a key languaging for you. May I suggest, rather than putting all the effort and energy into a prototype that requires resources and time on both ends of us, would you be open to this? Would you be open to us having bringing together the key people onto a conversation together and just throwing the idea out and sharing ideas around the concept? Let's just see first if they buy into the concept. If they buy into the concept, then we can create a roadmap for it to go from there. But what I don't want to do is build something prior to them being okay with the concept. Or would you be okay with that, John? You know?
Correct.